Hey everyone, and welcome to the Juggling Balls YouTube channel. I'm your host Stu, and today's video we're obviously going to be reacting to last night's defeat for said club um, in the Europa League final to Villarreal. Initial thoughts on it and initial reactions was obviously it was extremely gutted. Um, It was a big moment for this team under Ollie. Obviously didn't pass the test by any stretch of the imagination. Um, we really let ourselves down, not being able to beat that team. A lot of credit I think has to go to Emery with how he tactically got set up because he set it up perfectly. He sat deep but had the high pressure in front of the main bank of the defence in midfield. He kept all the pressure on the left hand side because that's where the major threat was with Shaw and Rashford. That isn't to say that there wasn't some threat for Greenwood, but obviously we're not as affected down the right hand side, and it showed because Shaw and Rashford had the poorest games they've had for a very long time. Um, yeah, it wasn't a great final to watch by any stretch of the imagination. It was a very poor final. Little to no excitement in it. I had a feeling we would go behind first after watching the first 20 minutes. I just had a feeling that even though we dominated possession, Villarreal would get a set piece and we were going to concede straight away. And yeah, it was just a very frustrating final, all 120 minutes and penalty shootout. One thing I will say is how good was the penalty shootout in terms of the quality of the pens. I haven't seen a shootout like that in years. I don't think I've seen a shootout like that ever, really, in terms of the length of it, the quality of it, how close the keepers didn't get to the majority of them. I think De Gea touched one of the penalties. I think their keeper touched a couple, got close to a couple. Obviously, notably Shaw's, he could have saved. He probably should have saved. But yeah, it's obviously a disappointing final. No matter how you look at it, there isn't really any positive. There can't be any positives taken away from it. It was a blown opportunity, really. Big missed opportunity for United to come away with their first trophy in 4 years. You know, I think the team. It wasn't necessarily. He didn't get it wrong with the team selection. I think with what the players he has at his disposal, Ollie picked the right team. He didn't have McTominay and Fred in the middle, even though Fred did pick up a knock in the warm up. I do think that's probably with the team he would have gone with. I think that you know you can't really say anyone had a good game. I think Cavani had a fairly decent game, and that was about it. I just think that with the team as it was, it showed obviously the lack of depth United have. And obviously we've spent money on the first team, and it's shown with the likes of Maguire, and obviously Cavani came in a free, and obviously Fernandez in January last year. And I just think that if you look at the just the lack of depth that we have on that bench, it showed because we didn't bring anyone on for the first 100 minutes, whilst Villarreal had half the squad subbed on by the time we get to the end of the 90 minutes. So that those 30 minutes of extra time, they were going to be a lot fresher. Um, it was, and I think it was a big miss for Maguire not to be in there because he's probably the main leader on the pitch, and I think he would have probably he gave us a kick up the backside more than anybody on that pitch at the start of the game would be able to. I think defensively, you would have kept us a lot more organised. I personally think it's difficult for me to say this because I've been such a big De Gea fan throughout the years he's been with us. Obviously, he started on shaky ground when he was first starting out in the Premier League, but I think that obviously De Gea not being, I just don't think De Gea was the right pick for the game. I think I would have gone with Henderson. I think if you bar the Liverpool game, he's been solid. He's been consistent. And you're just looking at, even if you take it in the sense of penalties, if you look at the record, De Gea's not saved a penalty in 30 plus tries. Um, Henderson saved almost half the penalties he's faced in his career. So I just think Henderson probably would have been a bit more energetic, a bit more energy to it. a little bit less uncertainty to the back four as well. I think there is a bit more trust now with Henderson than there is with De Gea. And yeah, it was just an off night for everybody. I mean, there's no other way to say it. We didn't deserve to win it. I don't think either team deserved to win it after the 120 minutes. I don't think Villarreal played us off the park. They just sort of sat back and soaked it up. We didn't really break them down. It was kind of a nothing game in that respect. And then penalty shootout, you're left to the the choices the players make, and for the majority of it, apart from maybe a couple of penalties, the players made the right decisions. The keepers didn't really get anywhere near them, and De Gea just kind of tucked it to the side and hoped for the best. Really, you could see he wasn't up for it when he stepped up for the penalty. Um, and yeah, it was a frustrating night overall. Really, it's a big opportunity blown for United, which I know I've said already. In terms of where we go next, in terms of where United go next, I think this whole Ollie out brigade's a bit ludicrous. I think that yes, it's disappointing that we didn't win a trophy, and I understand the emotions will be a bit strong. I think to say that Ollie deserves a sack after not winning his first final is a bit harsh when you consider that, you know, other managers have come into big clubs in Europe and in the Premier League and lost finals. I'm not going to name names, but you know, you can go out and research it and see that managers have not succeeded in the first couple of seasons and still been there 5, 6 years later and won trophies. Main examples, obviously, there's plenty of them. I'm not gonna name names and say, well, they've done this and they've done that because it's a bit pointless. But you know, I think that to say that he deserves a sack when he picked them when we were dead and buried under Mourinho by the end of it. There was no hope, no chance of us doing anything, and we fell away towards the end of that first half a season with Solskjaer and finished sixth or seventh. So obviously finished in Europa League places after almost, you know, getting into the top four, and then just falling away a little bit towards the end of that season. And then the second season we had a bit more consistency in spots. Obviously we had periods where we weren't that great and finished just we got into the last four on the last day of the season by beating Leicester. But again, it's a Champions League spot. It's progress from where we were, and then I think this season again, it's been progress again. We've been much better. There's been more quality. Yes, we've had bad periods. We had a bad start to the season. We had a poor February where we drew to teams like West Brom and people like that, and we just didn't get going again. But I think and then there's obviously getting knocked out of the Champions League at the group stage when we had 9 points after 4 games. I think it's a bit of a kick in the teeth with that, but it's progress. And I think the thing that irritates me about some of the Man United fans, and that I'm talking about my own club's fans here, is that there is a God-given right to be in these finals and to win the trophies and to win. It's almost like a Real Madrid and Barcelona sort of way of supporting, in that if you don't win a trophy or you don't have success every single season, that we are a bad team. And I think that where Solskjaer picked us up and where he's building towards, I think he should have another season or two, because he is obviously building something and he's trying to change the culture of the club back to what it was, in that he's trying to build success for the long term. Obviously, it would have been great if we'd won a trophy. I don't think obviously it would have been the be all and end all, because again, there were still points this season where things weren't great. We didn't get through in the groups of the Champions League. We had those inconsistent periods, but in comparison to the previous year and a half when he'd been there, it was much better. And I think for us to go on one result in a final where the players just didn't turn up, and he might have got a few things wrong, like not subbing earlier and things like that, I think it's ridiculous to say he should be sacked. And I think it's ridiculous to say that he should go in the summer. I just don't know. I just don't get it. If he'd finished outside the top four and this was our only chance to get in the Champions League to Champions League next season, then yeah, I'd probably agree with that. Maybe there was some regression, or he hasn't progressed as it wants to be, but we have progressed. And I think next year, with the right additions, we should be looking to try and be in the conversation for the title. I know Liverpool will certainly be coming back, and Chelsea will be as well. Outside of that, we're probably the only realistic ones. If we invest, then that should be the progression, and that's what we should be doing. Um, but yeah, it's a frustrating one. It's going to be a big summer for us. Clearly, it's going to be a big summer for us because I think the likes of De Gea, the likes of you know some of maybe the Deadwood are gonna go. I think obviously the criticism that Rashford got last night was over the top to say the least, and any sort of racist comments that he's received is just absolutely not on. It's shocking behaviour. Whether it's a fan of United or not, anybody giving racist abuse to anybody, whether a professional sportsman or just a normal person on the street, is just absolutely fucking ridiculous in my opinion. Um, and should and they should receive all sanctions possible. They should treatment like that to another human being, regardless of their color of skin, their ethnicity, their religious beliefs, whatever it is they're getting discriminated against or that sort of behavior for. They should have the book thrown at them. They shouldn't be allowed to just be a keyboard warrior and be able to, say whatever they want to people. It's not right. Um, yes, he had a poor game, but that doesn't mean the lad deserves that sort of behaviour and sort of, that sort of treatment. It's absolutely ridiculous and disgusting, and it should never ever happen. They play a game of football. They're human beings. They are not deserving of this, and it's absolutely quite frankly ridiculous. Um, and I think as well, another thing I'd like to point out is to say that for Paul Scholes to come out and say it doesn't mean things to players when they lose these finals, it's just, I think, quite frankly ridiculous. You can see the reaction of players. You could see it on Rashford's face. You could see it on Fernandes. You could see it on Cavani's face. You could see it on everybody's face that they were gutted to lose. I think to say that you get to a European final and not be upset about losing it is quite frankly ridiculous. But yeah, and going back to my previous point, it's going to be a big summer for Ollie. I think he is going to have to make a decision on Henderson or De Gea. Personally, I would go Henderson, because I think he works well with Maguire and Lindelof, and if we bring in another centre back, I'm sure he'd work well with them, and give him the season to see if he can claim that number one shirt. And if it doesn't go well, then we bring someone else in the next summer. But I don't think we can keep De Gea, and I think freeing up that wage packet that De Gea's on will help us bring in other players and sign other players that we need, like a right winger, another creative player, like a Grealish, or someone like that, or someone along those lines. It doesn't necessarily have to be Jack Grealish, but that type of player that's going to work in between the lines and, help us unlock these defences that sit deep, because really that is where we struggle, and where Bruno's helped us in a lot of regards is unlocking defences and getting in between lines and creating chances. And I think we need more of that in the team to be able to be successful against these teams, which is where we struggle. It's against the lower teams. It's not against these bigger teams. We have a plan to set up against them, and we've shown it can work. So yeah, that's my general thoughts on the final and Man United as a whole. I don't think Ollie should be sacked. I don't think he should walk. I don't think what's going to help is this manager merry-go-round with Poch obviously going back to looking like he's in talks with Spurs, Allegri going back to Juve, Zidane leaving Madrid. All that stuff's not going to help him. But if he has a good summer, gets the business done early, doesn't leave it till like the last Premier League transfer day, to the end of the transfer window. If we have a good summer, bring in those 3 or 4 players and a couple of players just to give us a bit of depth. I think that's what we lack, because I said it at the end of last season that when you look at that bench, who's he bringing on? And he's got no one to bring on. And yeah, I think that's where we improve and where we try and build that depth a little bit in the summer, and then kick on from there and see how we do next season. Because the players are clearly paying for him. I don't think it's the case the players don't want to play for Ollie, or I think he's doing anything wrong. Clearly he has the players on side. It's just he needs a bit more quality, he needs a bit more depth, and once he gets that, I'm sure he'll be. I think we'll be firing all cylinders, and I think we will win a trophy next year if we do that. obviously it's a big if we can get those players in, depending on the financial situation and what his transfer budget is and what he's able to do with that. But I think there's some players he'll be able to get money for and sell on, like Fred, De Gea, players like that. Get rid of some of the sort of the Phil Joneses and people like that who are on bigger contracts who aren't really playing. I don't think you'll get much money for Jones, but it's clearing up the books, it's clearing up the wage budget, and it's giving us more of a chance to go get the players that we need. So yeah, as devastating a result it was, and a bit of a gut punch to lose to Villarreal and not get that trophy. There's still some positivity to take out of it in terms of where we can go next season, as long as we get the players in, and we can still build from this. Other managers have lost finals, and other teams we've lost finals before and we've come back, so we can do it again. Of that I am sure. So with that being said, I'll leave it there. If you did enjoy the video, give us a like, share, and subscribe, and I'll catch you on the next one. And let us know in the comments what you think needs to happen next. Whether you think Ollie should go, or if we should do something in the transfer window. Let us know in the comments, because we do greatly appreciate any responses. And I'll catch you on the next one. Thanks, guys.